Okay, this is my audition reflection for pantomime auditions. I'll go through what I did prior to the auditions, how the auditions went, and then what happened after the auditions. So, before the auditions, we had to pick what characters we wanted to go for. We had a maximum of 2 choices. Originally, I wanted to go for one of the comedy duo, either pick or mix, purely because that is the stereotypical role I prefer to play in pantomimes. Because I like to play with my comedy timing skills and involving the audience, and I feel it's a much more fun and involved role to do in a pantomime, and is something I never normally get to do in a musical or a naturalistic play. Pantomime for me is my chance to be a bit more silly and a bit more free with the way I act, and you can get away with unrealistic things in pantomime, whereas you couldn't in a naturalistic play, which is why I tend to veer towards the more comedy roles. But I did originally consider maybe going for Rose Beauty, but I kind of brushed it off partially because I never normally go for the straight principal girl role, which is like the role of a princess, I suppose. I've never really been drawn to that princess role and what that requires and how it's played, because I find that they're quite boring to play, and that was one of my main concerns. And I did say that to Joe and Lisa, and they said, but you don't have to make her boring, you can make her however you want her to be, which kind of did spark a bit more interest in with me. For the actual auditions, I ended up just auditioning for Rose Beauty, because I wanted to step out of my comfort zone, do something I wasn't used to doing, and I wanted to push myself and really challenge myself, and I knew there'd be loads and loads of areas for research in terms of character, in terms of the original story, like to contextualise her and make her characterisation really strong. There'd be loads of research to do that. So I chose to go with Rose Beauty, and in order to prepare for my audition, as soon as I chose the role I was going for, I got myself organised straight away. Before picking the role, I read through the whole script to see the kind of characters and how they come across in the script and how they're written, because that's quite important for me. If I can't really connect well with a character because of the way they're written, I will struggle to play that character. But I was reading through some of Rose's lines, and I was thinking, okay, she's not that boring, kind of almost like a drippy kind of girl character. She's got a bit of a bite. She's not too complacent. She will kind of stand up for herself and kind of doesn't take things from her sisters. Obviously she lets them happen, but she's not bothered by them. She's got quite a thick skin, and she also maintains that really nice, kind demeanour throughout the whole show, despite what happens, despite how she's treated, which I found really nice and fresh to see and be able to dig into, because I could really play on that whole side of her where she's kind of a bit more standing up for herself, but also really tap into and kind of develop playing those more kind, sweeter characters rather than the more like funny characters or the sassier characters. It was a nice role to get a good range of different characters, and she had a few more levels and like kind of layers to her character. She wasn't just two-dimensional, which I really, really liked. So obviously I read the script, I got all the audition pieces together, I then put myself into groups for the appropriate audition pieces. So there was the scene with all the teachers, the sisters and Mrs. B, and then there was the other scene with the sisters, the lawyer and the father, and then there was the duologue with the Beast and Rose when they first meet in the garden. I also learnt both audition songs that were required for Rose, which was Everything Is Beautiful and You Will Be Found. Everything Was Beautiful I sang as a solo, and You Will Be Found as a duet with the Beast, purely because I found, without having any guidance, You Will Be Found seemed more of an easier song to turn into a duet rather than Everything Is Beautiful, although it is the other way around in the actual script. And so in terms of research, I looked into the original story of Beauty and the Beast before it got Disneyfied or turned into pantomimes or even films before Disney, which I know there is one, but I forget the name. I looked at the original story and how that was then adapted again to a more familiar story that people may know more than the very first original copy, and how that contrasts with the Disney version or pantomime versions and the kind of characters there are, because I find that some parts of the Disney version don't correlate with the character of Rose in our pantomime. The pantomime sits more alongside the story of the original, rather than having cutlery servants, like plates and things, as servants of the Beast, and a magical rose that wilts over time, which progressively makes the Beast wilt over time. And I used that kind of, as well as partial influence from Disney with the more headstrong Belle that they have, to kind of work on my characterisation, decide who she is and why she's like that, and kind of make her quite a tough-skinned girl. Like she can put up with things, but she'll stand up for herself, but she's never mean, she's never nasty, she's always kind, she will always consider others, and she will never say anything to hurt anybody. She will always be caring for each other, which is inspired by both the original story and the Disney version, but also the more headstrong nature is slightly more influenced by the Disney version, where Belle wants to go out and do things and just live her own life that she really fantasises, and doesn't care for men who want to come and marry her, doesn't care for Gaston, who fancies her and is adamant that marries her. And I also found that researching the original story and the Disney story helped me kind of solidify the kind of relationships Rose has with the rest of her family. So with her sisters, although they give her loads of stick and they take the mick out of her all the time and they quite blatantly don't like her as much, she still is really caring for them, will still do everything for them, and essentially doesn't bat an eyelid at what they do, because she's not fussed about it, because she's better than that. She understands that it's not personal, it's just them being how they wish to be, and shows that contrast of maturity between the characters. So despite everything, she still loves them, she still cares for them. Rose understands the importance of family and how close and how important the relationship between your family is, and she respects that. And the closest relationship she has, in my opinion, is with her father. They both adore each other. She would do anything for her father, which she then does when she keeps her father's promise and goes and stays with the Beast. I think she stays strong for her father because her father goes through a lot throughout the show, and she's kind of the glue that holds him together. She goes back and looks after him when he's unwell. She always kind of keeps him up, keeps him going. And I think from everything that I've read and everything I've kind of explored, I think that Rose really is almost a spitting image of her mother, and I think her father sees that in her, and that's why he adores her so much. And I think Rose kind of took over that motherly role because there was no mother there. That's why she cares for the sisters, cares relentlessly for her father, and I think she kind of stepped up and took on that role, or she watched her mother and she just became her mother as she saw her mother when she was little. So there will be a link to my auditions, obviously, but overall my auditions went fine, they were okay. Nothing went drastically wrong. I don't think anything went wrong at all. The acting auditions went smoothly. There wasn't a lot we could do blocking wise because it was quite a standstill, everybody speaking their lines from here, there and everywhere. There wasn't a lot of movement we could put in, but that wasn't a requirement. It was just more to see characterisation, which I think did come across from everybody. And the scene with the Beast went well. It got to show that chemistry between them when they first meet, and then the chemistry kind of starts building after she brushes off this fear of him. And the singing auditions went okay as well. I think my only problem was with both of them, especially the solo audition with Everything is Beautiful. I find that when it comes to singing auditions, I can get quite encapsulated by nerves. I have no problem singing in front of audiences at all. It's when it comes to an audition, that pressure really weighs down on me, and I think that's what sets off my nerves, and I tell myself if I don't get this right, everything's ruined. I've messed it all up. So I was feeling that pressure, which meant my voice was a little shaky, but once I got to a certain note that I was panicking about slightly and did it right, it was fine, and I could relax a little bit. But I think that pressure of it being an audition and those nerves tend to make me feel like my voice is a bit restricted, like I can't sing as well as I do when I practice, like in my bedroom or in the studio. But now the audition's done, I think in rehearsals I will be completely fine. But nothing went drastically wrong again with that. The harmonies for You Will Be Found went well. And I didn't go off time with the music, which was something I was panicked about. I thought I'll get too nervous and I'll rush, or I'll go too slow. So after the auditions, I looked back and I thought about my strengths and my weaknesses with my auditions. I think some of my strengths were that I was actually prepared this time for auditions. I found that last year I didn't feel very, very prepared. I didn't take much charge in preparing myself and getting ready for the auditions, and I left a lot of it to the last minute, whereas this year I made my decision as soon as possible and sorted everything within 3 days of knowing what I wanted to do, and I rehearsed pretty much every day the whole week before auditions, especially the songs, because that's what I was panicked about most. But I was really prepared and really organised this year in terms of my auditions. I knew exactly what I was doing, and I was off script within like 2 days, and I felt ready. I also, another strength of mine was that I actually felt confident this year. I think from last year my confidence has really grown massively, especially with doing auditions. Specifically with singing, because acting auditions I seem to be okay with, but singing auditions I find absolutely terrifying. I remember last year for Panto I didn't do a singing audition at all because it terrified the life out of me. I couldn't deal with that concept, so I went for a character that specifically didn't sing, just so I didn't have to do a singing audition, which in the long run wasn't the best idea, because then I couldn't have played, if I had have done it, I would have played a better role that I probably would have enjoyed more. I did enjoy my role last year, but I didn't get to push myself that much. In terms of singing auditions, I've become a lot more open to doing them. And I think that's from our singing lessons that we had last year, having to do a singing audition for play last year as well, when auditioning for the lead, and singing in play and doing shows outside of college, having solos and duets. That's really helped my confidence. And our singing lessons this year that we've had in our skill sessions, and having to sing like a minute of a chosen song, I thought I'd struggle with that massively, and I thought if I'm going to get nervous about it, it's not going to go well. But I did it, I forced myself to do it, and it went completely fine. I wasn't off key, I wasn't off time. I was still nervous and my voice was still shaky, but that's just something I think will come over time that I'll get over. 3 improvements that I have was I found that I got annoyed at having nerves. I need to stop getting annoyed at myself for having nerves, because then after my singing audition, because I was nervous and my voice was shaky, it felt a little bit restricted. Although it went completely fine, I walked out thinking that I'd messed it up and that it wasn't as good and I didn't show my full potential, and that there was no chance of me getting that role that I auditioned for. And I do that with every single role. I always think, okay, I'm not getting this role now, and I need to stop thinking like that. I need to say, that went well. Even if it didn't go well, I just need to say to myself, okay, that wasn't the best, but you tried to the best of ability you could have done in that moment in time. I need to stop getting myself for getting nervous, because it is a natural thing, and I like to live by the philosophy that nerves mean you're excited for it, and being excited for it just means it's a really good thing. Like, you should be excited for something you're auditioning. If you're excited for it, that means you really want it, and you really will work hard to get there, and you'll perform really well. So I think I need to look at my audition now and think, yeah, I was really nervous. That's because I really wanted it, and because I worked really hard. Another improvement of mine when it comes to the acting audition, I think I kind of, specifically the bigger group scenes, I think I let other characters kind of stand out a bit more. I found it a bit hard to really push my characterisation out, because she's quite a small character. Like, the line she had in those scenes was, they're quite throwaway lines, they're not that important to the scene, whereas the scene with the Beast, obviously very important because it's showing their relationship that's starting. So I think that's just down to the audition pieces really, but I still could have done a bit more with my voice, facial expression, maybe a few more gestures in there. And also, another improvement of mine is that I kind of just left everything to myself. I didn't really ask for any help, even though I feel like I could have used it. Even when we had that singing lesson where we covered all the songs, I was still slightly unconfident with some bits, and I kind of just let myself deal with that instead of asking for some guidance with it, which I should have done, which would have made my auditions a lot stronger, and then I think I wouldn't have problems with being nervous or kind of standing in the background a little bit for some of the auditions. So I think next time for auditions, if I need help, I think I'm going to ask for as much help as I can get. So then, after the auditions, the cast list was released the next day, and I obtained the role of Rose Beauty along with 2 other people. It's been triple cast. So in terms of my role, my next steps are to continue that research with the original story, look at other adaptations of the pantomime, to make that characterisation go further, so I'm then able to look at how she'll walk, how she will speak, if that makes sense. Like, the kind of tone she has. I know that she needs to be quite light and quite dainty, but the kind of, whether I put on a higher voice or whether I speak a bit softer or whether I use more gestures, if there's like a specific gesture or mannerism that she has, further research into other adaptations and writings of the story is going to help with that. Obviously I need to learn my lines, learn my blocking when it starts, and learn my songs as well and get confident on those songs and singing those songs in front of other people, because I think the first couple of times I will get very, very nervous about that, and there are some songs that will go in terms of key quite outside of my comfort zone. I prefer to sing quite lower, although I can sing not really high but relatively high for a classed alto singer. So to get confident on my songs, learn them as soon as possible, and then I'll be able to block them in terms of how I'm acting them, especially with the solos, because solos are really hard to block if you don't know them, and just going over my blocking and my scenes with other characters, establishing those relationships. And I think I just need to remember to enjoy it. If things go wrong, it's a lesson learned, and just to relax and enjoy this whole process.